I am currently the Director of Educational Innovation and Information Services at Presentation High School in San Jose. I'm also an adjunct faculty member at Foothill College in Los Altos, teaching in the Krause Center for Innovation and some of the teacher support courses that we provide for teachers all over Northern California in that area as well. I'd like to welcome you to another session of the Future Ready Schools 2015 School Leadership Summit. If you've been hanging out all day, I'm sure you've got had the chance to really see some great presentations. I want to mention kind of the two sponsors. I want to TICAL, who is the main administrative nonprofit organization within the state of California that supports a lot of good work that's being done by administrators in integrating technology in our schools, and also by the sponsors that we have here. And you can see we have quite a few of them. The Q, AXA, ISTE, Common Sense Media, SEPA, Arkansas Association for Educational Administrators. So we have a great group of people that have really kind of made this whole day possible, and I want to thank them for their support of this program, because without them, none of us would be able to do this. So kind of want to get right to it, because we have really kind of short 30-minute sessions. But this session kind of is, if I'm an administrator and I'm planning my professional development, I want to think ahead. I want to meet the needs of all my staff. The first thing I do want to point out to everyone is in the lower left-hand corner of this slide, you can see there's a little bit.ly there, bit.ly/R-thinking with a capital T and ahead with a capital A. If you use that link, you will be prompted to make a copy of my entire slide deck, so you can have a copy of my slides for the taking. Use them with your staff, use them in any way that you see fit to engage your staff and work with others in your district or in your local area. So professional development, and I dislike the word actually now, is that, do we really develop teachers? I mean, do we cause them to grow, to become more mature? Or is that really kind of a misnomer? I mean, what we do with teachers is that we want to, I think, change that process and really talk about professional learning, which is the acquisition and knowledge of skills that people are taught. They learn the skills, they then apply the skills. And I think that's a real plus. And I like to point, actually, both these definitions that I pulled in here are actually the Google or the Wikipedia definitions of those two terms. But the second definition here, knowledge acquired through experience, study, or being taught. For most of us, especially in education, we think about teaching and being taught, but a lot of the things we do really comes from experience. And the feedback that we get from others, from our students, from our peers, really kind of shapes the kind of things that we do in the classroom. So I'd like to kind of pull or take that idea, that experience piece, and really kind of hold on to it through most of the session. So the types of learning, and that's kind of the idea of pulling on that, is that apprentice model. All of us as educators, and when we became teachers, we kind of went through this model. We went through an apprentice model where we were the apprentice, a student teacher in a master teacher's classroom, and that we became, we took that opportunity to become skilled in that craft, and we got some trial and feedback, and that we were able to grow based upon those things. That's a typical coaching model. And even the best folks in the world, and I just kind of wanted to pull out the picture of Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson was Michael Jordan's coach. Michael Jordan was probably attributed to being one of the best basketball players of all time, but he still had a coach. He still had that one person who was there to provide him feedback on what he was doing and how he could improve his professional practice. And I think as teachers and as administrators, that's what we want to do, is we want to be that person either receiving the feedback from that critical friend, or that person who can provide that feedback to professionals. And I really, there's a big thing. Teachers are professionals, and I think we need to treat them as such. And part of that thing is that we give them professional feedback to improve their practice. So the second part is theoretical. This is typically what happens in most of our ed tech conferences. And even this session, to a certain degree, is a theoretical session. You know, we listen to someone, we apply what's there. We don't get much external feedback when we try it. One of the studies one of the stories that I like to tell is the greatest professional development session that you go to or hear someone speak at a conference. It may have 10 steps. And if you forget step 5 or you didn't take good enough notes on step 5, that whole experience, that enthusiasm that you really had to innovate and try to put that idea into practice is gone. That's one of the reasons that I provide my slides. I provide my slides for this session, but I provide slides for any professional learning session that I do. I want to make sure that those are there so that if you have a question, you at least have the information on the slides to go back to. And in all of my slides, I also provide a way to contact me. So, hey, I've got back. I tried to put this into practice and it didn't work. What tips can you give me? What things do I need to work on? And so it's that sit and get model, and it's bad PD. It just doesn't work. I think we need to look at a different way to provide professional learning experiences for our teachers. So, first of all, you know, that whole phrase, begin with the end in mind, I go all the way back. I'm pulling that idea back from Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And that's one of the first few of the 7 habits, is begin with the end in mind. What are our educational goals? What are our goals that we want to achieve? And what do we want students to learn? And as part of that, you want to develop that mental model. What is it going to look like? And as you do that, you have to kind of go with this idea of, what's my goal? I'm going to create it, and then I'm going to test it. I'm going to take that feedback, and it may come from kids say, I really didn't like this, or the teachers say, this really didn't work for us. Our staff's a little different. But that doesn't mean I just say, no, I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to iterate. I'm going to change that up. I'm going to make adjustments to it, and then I'm going to repeat. I'll have another kind of clip here, that real artists ship, as a quote from Steve Jobs. A lot of people have these great ideas, but they never put them into practice because they feel like that they may not be successful right away. I feel like you have to get out there and you have to try some things, and you'll find ways to make them effective. And on the right side of the screen, I want to really point out this whole idea of being the first penguin. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Randy Pausch in the last lecture, a book that he wrote about the process he was going through. But the first penguin was an award he gave his students who were in tech classes at Carnegie Mellon, and it was for the biggest failure of the entire semester. And that idea of the first penguin is that you see the one penguin diving in. He doesn't know if there's a shark there or another predator there. So he's the first one. He has to take a chance while all the rest of them stand up there and watch to see what happens to him. So find, you know, those people, or be that person who's going to kind of go out there and try something new. So those traditional delivery methods, they're all out there. The self-help, the how-to, the video, those are all great. Those are all support materials that you can use as a teacher and as an administrator. I would deliver professional learning sessions or even lessons to my classes, and then they would come back and say, hey, how do I do X? Or, oh, I need a little bit help with Y. Well, one of the first things that I would always point them to was resources that were self-help type stuff. So the how-tos or the video tutorials were always the first thing that I'd point them to. The second piece was some kind of blended, where it would be some kind of direct instruction to kind of get them moving, but then some of the information that they'd have to go look up on their own, that they would have to go and engage with, so that it gave them some kind of skin in the game, that they had to make some kind of commitment there to really do something as part of the entire process. And then that face-to-face, where you have that direct instruction. But even within direct instruction, you want to have some guided practice where people can actually put something or do something or create something that they can take with them. that idea of a take and make kind of session is really powerful because it allows people to do something, create something, receive some feedback on what they've created, which I think is super critical, is that feedback stage, because then they can go back and iterate, change, improve, and do those things. As kind of an aside, we have our school at presentation is a one-to-one iPad school. And one of the first things that we started to work with or struggle with was this idea of, with kids having iPads, they were creating so much content that the teachers couldn't keep up with just the amount of content that the kids were creating. So we started that whole idea of peer review and peers providing feedback for each other, and then they would iterate whatever it was, whether it was a paper, a video, but they would get some critical feedback, take that feedback, improve what they'd done, and then republish that. And I think that's a really strong practice to get into. And we really talk about 5 R's. So it's rubric, write, review, revise, and reflect. And if you can kind of go through that step process of the 5 R's, I mean, you'll be really much stronger through that process. So some of you may see these as being very familiar. So if you're familiar with the work of Richard DeFord, these should be very familiar. So in PLCs, or professional learning communities, he talks about, this is one of the 4 driving questions, is that what do we want students to learn? How are we going to know when they've learned it? How are we going to respond when they don't learn? How are we going to respond when they already know? So what you should be doing as an administrator in your professional learning activities with your staff is changing that one word. What do you expect all teachers to learn? And how are you going to put resources and make them available to teachers so that they can actually learn those things? And what support can you put in for those teachers who can't seem to get it? And how are you going to enrich the process for those teachers who do want to go ahead? So in moving on, that missing piece is that personal assessment. How do you know who can do what? How do your teachers use tech personally? Those are questions that I think as an administrator, I would really want to know for just about everybody on my staff. Who can do what with technology? And then how do they use tech personally? Because that's going to be indicative of what types of things I can use or what types of activities I can engage my staff in. The second piece is, how does someone function within your current system? Do they read and respond to email? Some teachers don't do that very often. They will use email in some cases as a one-way communication system. They don't see it as a two-way system, or they use it very sparingly as a two-way system. So what things do they already do within your environment? How do they react or respond to their peers? And are they collaborative within your system and with their peers? And then the third piece really is how adaptable. And so how does someone or a teacher on your staff adapt to adversity? When something doesn't work right the first time, how do they react to it? And that will really kind of give you the idea of what types of activities you can really use with your staff in order to get them to grow. So now, what do? What kinds of activities do you really want to engage your staff in? You have to figure out, what do they know? And you do that through observation. You can do the walkthroughs. A great tool to use on that observation and walkthrough is have an iPad, have some kind of mobile device. It doesn't have to be an iPad. It could be your phone. It could be an Android tablet or any kind of mobile device. One of the things that I found very valuable on a walkthrough is to be able to take pictures of what the classroom looks like. If there's some kind of quote on the board, I want to take a picture of that. If there's some kind of student work on the board, I want to take a picture of that, because that shows me what kinds of learning activities actually take place in that room. And I can use that information as a way to say, okay, these are the things this person's already doing. How can we build on those? So that's important. The second piece is, and I kind of mentioned already, what types of work are teachers having those students produce? If it's solely what I refer to as analog, which are typewritten papers or something that they just write out as an analog work product, that's one thing. Do they have students produce creative work? It may not be digital, but they may produce creative work. So in a social studies class, do they have them draw pictures, let's say, of a village in a world geography class? Do they have students take a picture and annotate a picture? So what type of work really comes out of those classes? And then the third part is that kind of anecdotal feedback that all administrators get from administrators and other staff members about different teachers in their school. And how can you best use that information as a way to plan your professional learning activities within your school? So in moving forward, what can they already do? And the previous couple of slides I've kind of go through, you've kind of assessed that. Don't teach what they can already do. Figure out what can everybody do and how do you build. Extend and refine what's already there, and then anything that you add has to be in the context of how is it going to improve teaching and learning in your school? And is it something that everyone in your school or every teacher in your school can engage in? And then let them know how learning this school will enhance teaching and learning in their classroom. For us, when we implemented our one-to-one program and we started looking at peer review as something that we wanted all teachers to be able to use with their classes, we saw the enhancement in teaching and learning was that students now knew that they were writing for an audience greater than themselves and the teacher. So it forced them to up their game because they knew it was going to be seen. And that we also knew that kids were then going to receive feedback on their work before it actually was submitted for a grade to the teacher. And the students who were actually providing the feedback got to see the content or the material from someone else's point of view. So we saw a lot of big pluses and ways to enhance teaching and learning by using peer review in our school. So what are you going to do? First thing is that match game. Find out what they can already do. Match your goals. So that first set of goals, those entry-level goals, should be an application of what they can already do on a school-wide basis. That you can now go out and have that first easy win. It allows the staff to say, yes, we can do this as a staff. It gets everybody together and it allows them to kind of feel together as a group. The second round is you want to kind of double down. Find those things that you're doing, find those things that you're successful with, and connect them to something new. Take something that you've done in the past and put it into a different context. How you can kind of parlay that learning into something else. Develop examples, brainstorming, but here's a big one, faculty meeting flip. And I don't know how many teachers or how many administrators have done a flipped faculty meeting. To me, this is a super powerful tool for administrators, because one of the things, and I don't know how many of you have had this experience, but I did while I was teaching, where I would be in a cafeteria or a large room setting, and the entire faculty would be there waiting for the faculty meeting to start, and in would walk an administrator with a stack of papers that was some article that there was a copy for everyone. So typically in a staff of 50 or 60, there's an article there for everyone. So the stack of papers was maybe 10 to 12 inches high. And one of the administrators would distribute the readings out to everyone, and then everyone would sit in the faculty meeting and read a specific article or 3 or 4 pages of the article. I just felt like that was a real waste of the time of the staff. And I think the staff really didn't appreciate it. Whereas, is it something that I could provide in a different context? It could be that you provide the article ahead of time and ask people to read the pages 5 to 10. But I would find more dynamic content. Is there a video where you could ask people to watch a 5 to 10 minute clip of video before they come to the faculty meeting and say, we're going to discuss this, and would this be something that we could try at our school? You could also ask people, watch this video, and then after you've watched the video, respond to these questions in a Google form, and you can now take those responses and dump them into like a Wordle, or create a word cloud, and use that as the jump off point for your discussion in your faculty meeting. I think it just takes the content and twists it around a little bit, so it's not just, okay, we read the article, we're going to discuss it now. And I think it really, those types of activities turn teachers off, whereas if you can actually have them be a more active participant in the process, and they can see that you're going to use the feedback that they provide in a real way, it also provides a way for those teachers who typically won't, or definitely will not, speak up in a faculty meeting, a way to get their voice heard without having to stand up in front of their peers. It's a very valuable tool. And then I believe that administrators need to model the techniques that they want their teachers to use in the classroom. Flipping a faculty meeting may be one, but I would also, go through and say, what other techniques could you model? Could you model, talking with elbow partners? Could you model using a Google form in the middle of a faculty meeting to gauge interest on any particular item that you might be discussing? I think those are ways that you could actually use the technology and use the staff in a much more productive way. And then you need to find out what they want more or less of. And I think, and then iterate. We talked earlier about iterating and changing and kind of being very flexible. Find out what they want more or less of, and then kind of build upon those things. You may eventually come back to your initial track, what you thought was the initial place you wanted to get to, and you may have a little longer route. But if you can find out what they want more of, so that that motivation is there, you can get there a little bit quicker, even if you have to go a roundabout way. So round 3, community connections. And I think from a digital perspective, this is huge. If you ask most parents, why do you not go to the website of your child's school? They will say, almost invariably, every single time, I don't go there because the content never changes. And if you ask most teachers what's on the website, well, it's the same stuff that was there last year. Or it's, oh, it's just the basic syllabus and those kinds of things. One of the best things schools can do for professional growth and professional learning is to engage the community, and to engage the community in a way so that they feel like they know what's going on in the school. If, as a principal, and there are ways to do this, as a principal, if I write a blog and I actually have that blog embedded into the main page or the front page of the school website, that means I've taken away the barriers. I don't have to learn how to code a website. I don't need to get into the website and change things. I write a blog article that's just like writing an email. I hit publish and it automatically goes to the school website. As a principal, I would collect all of the email addresses of as many parents as I could, and I would take and I would push information to them as much as I could. Make sure that you over communicate with your parents and your community, and make sure they really know what's going on. There's a great example of a principal up in Northern California, not far from where I'm at, San Jose, but he uses Twitter on a daily basis, and he is tweeting almost every hour about things that are going on at his elementary school. And he knows every student in his school. And he can, because they're using Google Apps for Ed, he actually has access to all of the home folders of all the students in his school. And so if he sees some kind of work that a student has done at his school and he sees that parent, he can, on his phone, pull up that student's folder in Google Docs and say, Mrs. Jones, see what Johnny did? This is a great project that your son completed. It's a great way to connect with the community. And when the faculty sees that, and when the faculty can engage in that way and really kind of get that information back out, it really strengthens the bond and makes those parents partners in the learning process, and the teachers feel supported at that point. Another way that I've seen many teachers do this is to basically publish all of the content, all of the things that the kids receive in class, they put out on their website and they provide that out for the parents, so the parents know exactly what's going on every single day. As a principal and as an administrator, I think that's a very powerful tool to be able to get out there to them. So the fourth piece is now, if you really want to start moving ahead, remember we talked about the penguins, you know, that first penguin, who knows what's in the art, is there a shark in the water or not? But find out those teachers and staff members or parents that can assist you, who can be that first penguin and visualize what's possible, right? Who can be that first one to jump in the water? As a tech coordinator at a school, I found those teachers who were willing to take a risk in using technology, and I supported that. If there was funds available, I was able to buy certain things to make the things that make it possible to do the things that they wanted to do. And in turn, I'd say, if I provide this extra material, if I provide you with the resources, my expectation is that you're going to do something with it, and that we can use it to assist other teachers to do the same thing. So finding your penguins and supporting your penguins, even if it's just with moral support, but if there is funding available that you can support them just a little bit more, I think that's a really powerful way to go. So to kind of finish up, and I know I only have a few minutes here, I'm going to do a little bit of a plug here. So this book, Creating a Google Apps Classroom, is a book that I co-authored with 4 other great educators. Some of you may be familiar with many of them. Ramsey Musallam, who is on the Infinite Thinking Machine and has done a few TED Talks. As a science teacher up in Northern California here, Catlin Tucker, who's written a few books for ISTE as well. A great English language arts teacher up in the Santa Rosa area, and some of the things that she does with her classes are just truly amazing. Some of the field trips that they do and things like that. But if you use Google Docs, this may be something that you may want to look into. And to kind of finish up, I know I'm maybe a couple of minutes early, but here's my contact information. Please feel free to email me at this address, or you can actually tweet to me and I can provide, and I will actually post the slides as well out on Twitter. I'll tweet them out in just a few minutes here, so that if you didn't get them at the very beginning, I'll provide those for you there as well. And I want to thank everybody for taking the 30 minutes to listen in, and kind of, I hope everybody got some ideas and took away some things that they're going to be able to use hopefully very soon, but if not, in the near future, that they can use to really improve the professional learning program at their schools. So again, thank you for your time, and please feel free to contact me.